Well, good morning. This is Plant Smart Living with Farmer Fred. Really glad you could join me today out here in the vegetable garden. It's a beautiful day here in Pennsylvania, Zone 6. It's warming up today, and right now it's around 62 degrees. But anyhow, I just returned from Ray's greenhouse over in Telford. And so today I wanted to share with you my favorite warm weather plants from Ray's greenhouse. So thanks for joining me today out here in the vegetable garden. You know, I love this time of year, springtime here in Pennsylvania. You know, the garden's just come out of hibernation now, and I have a lot of seeds directly sowed in the garden. And, you know, it's a lovely time of the year with the soil warming up. And, you know, this is the perfect time to, here in Pennsylvania, to start planting these warm weather crops. But I just love springtime. It's a time of renewal and rebirth. You know, the leaves are starting to unfurl from the trees, and the wildflowers are starting to bloom in the woods, and it's just and the birds are starting to sing their praises. And so it's just a beautiful time to spend outside in our garden. It's very peaceful and relaxing and therapeutic. Well, today I have my plants laid out over at my outdoor garden structure where I can discuss some tips and ideas on how to plant these. And so follow me along over there at the outdoor garden structure. So our frost date here in Pennsylvania, Zone 6, is May 15th. In other words, that's generally when our last frost is going to be here in our gardens. Now, in the past, I've normally waited like a week after May 15th. Today's May 7th. But you know, I looked at the 10-day forecast, and there was a long stretch of some nice 70-degree temperatures, maybe a low of 50 degrees at night. And so, you know, I thought I would get a little jump on the season, and so I purchased all these transplants this morning from Ray's greenhouse over in Telford, PA. You know, keep in mind when you transplant seedlings or transplants out in your garden, you know, you want to make sure that these ones here, especially what I'm planting, are the peppers and your tomatoes and your melons, your cucumbers, your zucchini. You want to make sure they get a good 6 to 8 hours of sunlight in your garden. I always say the more the better. Now your leafy greens, you know, your lettuce, your kale, Swiss chard, mustard greens, they can get away with 4 to 6 hours of sunlight. So you really want to bear that in mind. I don't know if you've seen this mug here. This is a 1-quart smallmouth ball jar, and a couple years ago they had these screw-on handles at Ace Hardware store. They had them on sale, and I just thought they were the neatest thing. It actually says on their handle J-O-I-E, maybe Joey or something like that, but they're just really convenient, and I just love having the 32-ounce water jar here. Being I have to do a lot of talking on these videos, I really get thirsty. So anyhow, I'm just going to go through here and share with you what vegetables I bought this morning. I also, like last week, I went ahead and I direct sowed all of my Waltham butternut squash. And so I didn't buy any butternut squash. That's my favorite winter squash. I've grown the Blue Hubbard in the past. I've grown acorn squash in the past, but just this year, all I'm doing is growing the Waltham squash. I just love the size. It's not too big, it's not too small. And I just roast them at like 350 for an hour or so. And you don't have to cube them up or cut them up or steam them or boil them. And so I just roast them. And once they're, you can poke a fork in them, then you can just scoop out the seeds. But I just love roasting my butternut squash. So anyhow, here I have 4 plants of some bush crop cucumbers. It matures in 55 days and the fruit size is 8 inches. And so these are bush cucumbers. It's nice that way you don't have to provide a trellis if you don't want to. And also, by the way, all these plants that I have here in front of me, I think they cost $46. And so to me, I think that's a really great deal. And so next on the list here, I have some Athena muskmelon cantaloupe. And I have a pack of 4. Here it says they mature 95 days and the fruit size is 5 to 7 pounds. We just love our fresh cantaloupe and watermelon from the garden. And then I had some zucchini elite squash. I have 4 plants here, matures in 45 to 50 days. Especially if you're starting out in your garden, it's to buy transplants or seedlings with that. There's nothing wrong with that. We have busy schedules, and it takes time, especially if you're sowing your seeds inside. You have to provide a light and a timer, and it takes a lot of care and nurturing, and they don't always work out either. And so for me, most of my seeding, I plant out, I direct sow out in my soil. And I'm going to be planting all these in my composted leaf mulch that I amend with topsoil, and I get that locally from Barnside Compost. This year I got 5 yard of delivery from that. It cost me $205, and that included delivery. And so you have your warm weather crops. They like their feet warm, but I spoke briefly on the cold weather crops. Back in beginning of April, I planted my broccoli, some curly leaf kale, some Swiss chard, some red beets. And also, all those plants, the cold weather crops you plant in the spring, you can also plant them in the fall. And also another thing to keep in mind is all these plants that I have here in front of me, you can also grow them in containers on your deck or balcony or patio, and so it really makes it convenient for beginner gardeners. And so I have here sangria watermelon. It gets 20 to 24 pounds. It's a nice big hefty watermelon. And then here I have some basil plants in front of me. Now this year I decided to buy 5 basil plants because my wife and I are going to freeze basil over the winter, but we just love the basil here. We use it in our tomato sauces. I also use this in our zesty salsa. There's just a lot of good uses for this basil in your different recipes. And then I also have here in front of me King Arthur bell peppers. That's a sweet bell pepper. It matures in 60 to 75 days. Its fruit size is about 4.5 by 4.5. And so I ended up buying 18 of these plants. And we just love our sweet peppers or bell peppers here in our garden. And so I always encourage gardeners to plant a lot of peppers in their garden because they're expensive to buy, and we also dice our peppers up and freeze them over the winter time. And so we just put them in a 1-gallon freezer bag. And so we use the diced peppers in our chilies, in our tortillas, and there's a lot of different ways to use your peppers. And then next on the list here, I have some eggplant, and matures in 75 days. It's actually a classic, called classic variety, and its fruit size is 7 to 8 inches. And I have 1 pack of 6. And so, you know, my wife and I enjoy the eggplant. I also enjoy sharing all my vegetables with my friends and neighbors, my 3 daughters. You know, I have generally enough here to feed a small army. And so I also have some crimson sweet watermelon. They mature in 80 days and the fruit size is about 20 pounds. And I have a pack of 4 here. And then I have here in front of me one of my favorite tomatoes. You'll often hear me talk about them if you watch some of my garden videos, but they are the Sun Gold cherry tomatoes. I ended up buying 7 of these plants. These were actually $1.25 a piece. And these tomatoes, they grow, they mature in 57 days and the fruit size is 1 inch. Now I've also grown the Sweet Million tomatoes and the yellow pear tomatoes, and I've actually did some videos on comparing the different flavors, like the Sweet Million versus the Sun Gold. And I'll tell you, I think the Sun Gold just wins hands over. Also, my season 2016 and 2017 is where I show you how to transplant or plant these in your gardens, these different vegetables. Since I've already shown people how to plant these in their garden over the last couple years, I'm not going to this year, season 4, I'm not going to show people how to plant these because I've already done that several times in the last couple seasons. But these Sun Gold cherry tomatoes are like nuggets of gold, you know, on the vine. You know, you just go out there and pluck them in your mouth. And these mature in 57 days, like I said, and the fruit size is about 1 inch. And I'm going to be growing these up my trellises because, you know, these can grow anywhere from 6 to 12 feet long or more. And I basically don't prune these anymore. I just let them do their own thing. And you'll be amazed how many more tomatoes you grow, or tomatoes will be grown on this vine. So I wouldn't suggest plucking off the suckers. Maybe the first couple feet to get them up off the ground you could pluck the suckers, but after that I would just encourage you to let them do their own thing, and they're just going to look like grapes on the vine. And so I also have here some plum crimson tomatoes. These mature in 78 days. The fruit size is 4 ounces. These are great for if you want to make salsa or spaghetti sauce. It's a nice meaty tomato. And so I ended up getting 12 of those tomato plants, and then I have 12 of the Mountain Spring tomatoes. And these are Mountain Spring tomatoes are great for sandwiches. You know, we also use them in our salsa or our tomato sauce that we make. My wife and I can close to 100 quarts of tomato sauce and salsa every year. And so there's just nothing like having homemade tomato sauce or salsa. And then I have here a pack of supersonic tomatoes. These mature in 79 days. The fruit size is 9 ounces. This is a pack of 6. Now you do want to, when you buy tomatoes, like this variety here, it's called indeterminate. That means they're going to vine, you know, grow up anywhere from 6 to 12 feet or more. So you want to make sure if you do buy indeterminate tomatoes, now what's nice about these is these will continue to grow right through the first frost. But you want to carefully read your labels. Now, like these plum crimson tomatoes or my Mountain Spring, they are a bush type tomato, which means they'll get anywhere from around 36 to 42 inches high. But the determinate tomato, I just use my metal tomato cages, how to support those. I did a video on that. But you do want to carefully read your label. Make sure you're either going to buy, I would recommend having a determinate and a indeterminate varieties in your garden, because these plum crimson tomatoes or even the Mountain Spring, they're going to pretty much come to harvest about the same time, and that way it makes it convenient for when you do a lot of canning. And so, like I said, I do grow the supersonic or other big boy tomato varieties. I tried a lot of different ones in the past, but like I said, the supersonics are going to continue. You can harvest them right up to your frost. And then lastly, I have here some wave petunias. Someone asked me the other day what type of flowers I had around my little garden fountain. You know, a couple of years ago I did a video on how you can install a garden fountain for $65. It's a very informative video if you really want to have a bird bath slash fountain in your garden. But anyhow, these are the wave petunias. It's a purple variety. I'm going to be planting these today as well as all the other vegetables in the garden. Also, these are the sun gold cherry tomatoes, but I'm going to be growing these up my cattle panel trellises. You can I get mine from Tractor Supply for around $22, somewhere around there, but these are going to be growing up them, and then I just use a jute twine to anchor my cherry tomatoes to. Again, these are the indeterminate variety, which means they're going to need some type of trellis to grow on. One thing, I hope this video gave you some ideas on what to plant in your garden, in your area. And so if you have any questions or comments about this video, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. You know, as a society, we've really become disconnected from growing our own food. You know, we have a grocery store almost in every corner, and you know, it really makes it convenient to buy everything, but you know, a lot of these vegetables have to travel 1,500 miles, you know, and by then they're, you know, they have lost a lot of their nutrient content, and you know, they have pesticides or herbicides on them, you know. But by growing your own food in your garden, you know, you can take control of your vegetables, of what you're putting in your mouth, you know, because growing them in your backyard, obviously you can grow organically, you know, and so they're just nutrient rich and just tasty and delicious growing your own food. And so my hope here at Plant Smart Living is just to help everyone find their inner farmer, you know, and to share the message that gardening can be something that's simple and easy to do. Even if your level of experience isn't that much, you know, you can start growing vegetables in containers on your backyard, patio, or your deck. It also allows us to participate in the miracle of plant growth. You know, just think a little teeny tiny seed. It's a living embryo. Now it's in its dormant stage, you know, and so that little seed needs to be planted in the soil or any suitable matter. And there you're going to water it and nurture it, and you know, the warm sunshine. It may take 5 to 10 days for that little seed to germinate and pop its little head above the soil. But after that, you know, as a mother would care for its newborn baby, you know, we get the opportunity to nurture and care for these plants up into maturity. And just think of the amount of food you can produce in your own backyard garden. And again, I spent $46 here from Ray's greenhouse, and these plants are going to feed me all season long and even through the winter, because I store my winter squash in my garage, and then the red beets I freeze and the tomatoes I freeze. And so, you know, it's just a win-win situation having your own fresh vegetables in your backyard garden. I call it my backyard grocery store. Well, now I just want to thank you for joining me out here in the garden today. You know, you can visit us at PlantSmartLiving.com, and there you can learn more about gardening and also how you can reclaim and restore your health by adopting a whole food, plant-based, vegan lifestyle. Anyhow, I just hope you have a wonderful and bountiful garden season. So until next time, this is Plant Smart Living with Farmer Fred.